Welcome to SS2 Biology, Term 3, Week 7. An environmental impact assessment (EIA) is a systematic process used to identify, predict, and evaluate the environmental effects of a proposed development project before it proceeds. EIA was developed in the 1970s and is now a legal requirement in Nigeria and most countries. By the end of this lesson, you will define EIA, outline its stages, describe the types of environmental impacts, explain Nigeria's EIA regulatory framework, and give examples of major EIAs in Nigeria. Let us begin. An environmental impact assessment is a process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and communicating to decision-makers the likely significant effects of a proposed project on the environment and human health, and identifying measures to prevent, mitigate, or compensate for those effects. Key purpose: EIA ensures that decision-makers consider the environmental consequences of their decisions before action is taken. Origins: the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, of 1969 in the United States was the first legislation to require EIA. Nigeria adopted EIA through the EIA Act of 1992, or Decree No. 86 of 1992, enforced by the Federal Ministry of Environment and NESRIA, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency. When is EIA required? The EIA Act 1992 requires an EIA for any major development project with potential for significant environmental impact. Mandatory sectors include oil and gas operations, mining, large-scale agriculture, dams and irrigation schemes, industrial facilities, transportation infrastructure, roads, airports, ports, urban development projects above a threshold scale. Small projects may require a simpler environmental audit or initial environmental examination, i.e. The EIA process has 6 key stages. Stage 1, screening, determines whether an EIA is required for a particular project, based on the type, scale, and location. Projects are classified: Category A, full EIA required, significant impacts expected; Category B, limited environmental assessment sufficient; Category C, no EIA needed, minimal impact. Stage 2, scoping, identifies the key environmental issues and concerns to be addressed in the EIA, involves consultation with government agencies, affected communities, NGOs, and the general public, produces a terms of reference, TOR, or scoping report. Stage 3, impact assessment and prediction, the core technical analysis, describes the existing environment, baseline study, ecology, hydrology, air quality, social conditions, health, economy, predicts the likely impacts of the project on each component, assesses the significance of each impact, magnitude, likelihood, duration, reversibility. Stage 4, mitigation and alternatives, identifies measures to avoid, reduce, or compensate for significant adverse impacts, considers alternative sites, designs, technologies, and the no project option. Stage 5, environmental impact statement, BECE, the formal document presenting all findings, reviewed by the regulatory authority, NESRIA/Federal Ministry of Environment, and made available to the public. Stage 6, monitoring and audit, ensures that predicted impacts do not exceed acceptable limits, verifies that mitigation measures are implemented, ongoing throughout project construction and operation. Environmental impacts are classified in several ways. Direct versus indirect impacts. A road construction project directly impacts the vegetation cleared along the route, direct impact, but it also opens up previously inaccessible forest to hunting and logging, indirect impact. Short-term versus long-term impacts. Construction noise is short-term, habitat loss is long-term. Reversible versus irreversible impacts. Temporary closure of a river for bridge construction is largely reversible, extinction of a species is irreversible. Local versus cumulative impacts. A single oil well may have localized impact. Hundreds of oil wells, pipelines, and associated facilities across the Niger Delta have cumulative impacts far greater than the sum of individual projects. Cumulative impact assessment is one of the most challenging aspects of EIA. Social impacts, displacement of communities, resettlement, loss of livelihoods, cultural heritage destruction, health effects from pollution. EIA must assess all categories. In Nigeria, the Ogoni land crisis, Kensa Waiwa, MOSOP, Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, executed 1995 by the Abacha regime, highlighted decades of oil extraction without adequate EIA or community consultation. The UNEP Ogonaland Environmental Assessment, 2011, found contamination of soil and groundwater at 1,000 times WHO guidelines, the worst oil pollution assessment ever conducted. Over 30 years and $1 billion would be needed for cleanup. Example 1, Lekki Deep Sea Port, Lagos. Nigeria's first deep sea port required a full EIA due to its scale and coastal location. The EIA identified dredging impacts on aquatic ecology, sedimentation, turbidity, loss of benthic organisms, reclamation of mangrove habitat, traffic and noise impacts on surrounding communities, socioeconomic impacts on artisanal fishermen. Mitigation measures included seasonal dredging restrictions during fish spawning, mangrove replanting program, community compensation funds, traffic management plans. Example 2, hydropower dams on the Niger. Kainji Dam, 1968, and Jebo Dam, 1983, were built before Nigeria's EIA law. Retrospective assessments showed massive impacts. Reservoir flooded 1,000 square kilometers of land, displaced over 44,000 people. Kainji, fish migration blocked, many fish species declined dramatically, loss of seasonal floodplains used for farming. Lesson: EIA must occur before construction, not after. Example 3, oil and gas sector. Every new oil field development in Nigeria requires an EIA under NECO rules and Department of Petroleum Resources, the DPR, guidelines. However, enforcement remains weak. Oil spills from aging infrastructure are often reported late or not at all. EIA monitoring is under-resourced. Public participation. EIA must include meaningful public participation. Affected communities have the right to be informed, consulted, and to contribute to the process. In practice, Nigerian EIA often has inadequate community participation, a major governance gap. Key points: EIA is a systematic process to assess environmental effects of proposed projects before approval. Nigeria's EIA Framework, EIA Act 1992, NECO, Federal Ministry of Environment. 6 stages: screening, scoping, impact assessment and prediction, mitigation, EIS, monitoring. Types of impact: direct and indirect, short-term and long-term, reversible and irreversible, local and cumulative, social. Nigerian examples: Lekki Deep Sea Port, mitigated dredging, mangrove replanting, Kainji Dam, pre-EIA, major displacement and ecological impacts, Niger Delta oil sector, weak enforcement. WAEC biology questions on EIA require understanding of stages, types of impacts, and Nigerian case studies. Environmental science is increasingly examined at SS2 and SS3 level as climate and environmental issues gain prominence in the Nigerian curriculum.